Okay, we're on project E, and this is in the Math 122 SAGE project. All right, so, we got a document. We're expecting you to read it, understand what the document's telling you to do. It's about finding t, where t is less than or equal to pi squared for the integral. And the integral over here is this one over here. And the bottom line is, it says y is a function of t. It's an integration problem. And it kind of looks difficult. What I did over here, and again, I want to point out what I'm doing over here is that I visualized the problem. And so what do you mean you visualize it? I visualized the sine of the root of x. That's this curve over here. And then what I did was I shaded in the region from 0 to t. So looking at it, t looks about 2.4 to me. Just look at this picture over here. And this shaded area is not approximately, is 2. All right. By the way, it is approximate because it's just an image, and an image can never be exactly right. But that integration I did actually turns out to be 2. So I would say the first thing you should do is visualize the problem. And one way to visualize problems is learn how to use a computer. All right. Now, what application am I using here? I'm actually using an application called Grapher to do that. I'm not using Sage to do it. All right. But anyway, it's got a picture. What does it say? Look at the graph, estimate t. The aspect ratio is not 1 to 1. What I'm saying over here is that if you notice up here, this is the number 1, and this is the number 1 over here. They're surely not the same scale. Like, for example, if we're 1, the 1 would be over there then. But it's not. I mean, the scale on the x is not the same as the scale on the y. All right, so that area over there is 2. And it says aspect ratio is not 1 to 1, but the shaded region is 2 square units. All right? So, answers may vary, but it's clearly between 2 and 3. Let me go through this again. I'm seeing an answer between 2 and 3. Again, if that shaded region is 2 units, square units, the answer for the t would be somewhere between 2 and 3. Let me get back to this over here. All right? So, I estimate it to be about 2.4, but again, somebody else looking at it might say, hey, gee, I think it's, 2.5. But again, you can't say much more accurate than this. But I'm going to say roughly 2.4. Right. So let me go to Sage now, and talk about the one way to do the problem. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to Sage. Let me clear my screen. I'm going to do a little differently than they did, but don't think you have to do it the same way. All right. So I'm going to say reset. I'm going to have two variables, x and t. They're variables. X and t are variables. And I'm going to define a function, f of x. And I want to tell you what that function is. That function is, let's go back over here, is the sine of the square root of x. I'm going to display f of x for you. And I'm going to, write an equation down now for you. Again, I'm doing a little bit different than they did it, but there's a point to this. Certainly, we don't want you to just copy things, but, a lot of times you're going to be in that stage where you don't understand what to do. You're going to start to copy things. But I'm going to say equation 1, right, is going to be assigned an integration, integrate. And what am I going to integrate? I'm going to integrate f of x with respect to x, and I'm going to go from 0 to t. Now, a lot of times I can't remember a command and I type it in wrong. And certainly I'll know that when I do that, but I'll do this over here. And you notice I made a mistake. So what I got to do is, I got to look it up. I made a mistake because it's coming as weird, right? So anyway, let me take a look at this one over here. And, let me just see, integrate. I'm going to hit the tab button. I'm going to kind of scroll around. Whoops, sorry about that. And let me use my arrow here, and I'm going to do integrate here, and I'm going to put a question mark next to it. All right, and let's take a look at it. And again, I'm kind of just looking at it, and again, it says I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm going to keep scrolling around. I'm going to hit the space bar now. And I'm seeing they got all kinds of nice things over here. And let me just keep hitting the space bar. I'm not reading every detail, but I'm getting enough details. I'm starting to think I got to quit now. I think I can go back and do my code again. And I notice I got this over here, 0, t. But again, maybe I misread. Look at it again. Got a problem over here. Let me go back, integrate with the question mark, hit the enter, hit this thing over here. And again, I'm kind of looking around. Yeah, I see my error now. Again, I'm looking at the, by the way, you remember what I'm looking at this thing over here. Well, not the same integral. I'm looking at it. All right, let me hit the Q button. And let me go back over here. And it's going to happen to you, by the way. You're going to keep putting things in. And I'm getting error after error, but I notice it says computation failed since maximum requested additional constraints. Using the assume command before the evaluation may help. Blah, 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 blah. What did they say? Assume t is greater than 0. So let me write that down first. Assume. And I'm going to put this down over here. T is greater than 0. And let me try that again. Wow. I took their hint. All right. Now I'm going to say solve. I don't know if it's going to work, by the way. I want to solve equation 1, EQ1, and I want to know when is that equal to 2. I'm making an equation out of it, and I want to solve it for t. And let's see what happens. It spits back an answer. It's basically saying, I can't do it. All right. Now, granted, maybe I don't have the skill set to get the integral to work that way, but I got to go now and say, there's got to be a better way of doing this. All right. So what I want to do is, let me just type in equation 1 again. I'm sorry, equation 1. All right. Oh, yeah, it actually did the integration. Let me clear it. Let's not worry about that too much. What I want to do is I want to, start to say, my attempt to do it wasn't so successful. So let's take a look. And I've already reset it. I already got the t variable. Now notice I'm using another command. It's called numerical integral. All right, numerical integral. Now I'm going to just type in, not the whole thing, but just type in this part, and then I'm going to hit the tab button. And it filled it out for me. And what am I going to do? I'm going to integrate sine of the square root sqrt of t, right? And I'm going to go from 0 to 2.4. All right? Now, again, I want to tell you what I'm doing over here. Remember I said it looked like that the integration would produce a 2 if I went from 0 to 2.4. Whoops, made a mistake. Let's see where I made a mistake over here. I see it now. I didn't close out my sine function. All right, so it says it's 1.932. I got to go a little bit bigger than 2.4. So let's go 2.5. And now it's bigger than 2. I want to point out what numbers I'm looking at. This number over here. This is less than 2. That's bigger than 2. So I know my answer is between 2.4 and 2.5. So someone says, what would you do next? I'd probably do something in between. And I'm going to say 4.5. And that's a little bit below 2. So now I'm going to go between 2.45 and 2.5. And I would say probably there, I don't know, I'd probably go, let's see what they did. 4750. Let's put that down. All right. Wow. It's a little bit above, right? So if I want to go a little bit below that, let's do a 4 there instead. I get a little bit better. Let's do a little bit better than that. Let's go, I don't know, 1. Well, I'm getting better and better, right? Let's go 0. Let's go 6.9 now. You see what I'm doing now? The computer's doing the computation for me. Now, this is rather primitive to do that, but I think you get the idea. I'm getting a pretty good approximation of what the number is, all right? But again, they keep going through it over and over again, all right? So the thing I want to get across to you is that it can't hurt to use Sage as a computer to do computation. It's a nice computer to do computation, but you're kind of ballparking it, all right? But here's the deal. I think we did this before, by the way, if you remember. I was doing that equation 1. Let me go backwards in the notes, by the way. And I want to point out we were able to get this antiderivative over here. We were able to get that. All right. So I got the antiderivative. Let me go back over here. Whoops, sorry about that. And what I want to do is I'm going to assign that f of t now. Underscore is the prior command. All right, you get the idea. That's f of t. So if I put in, and I want to put the number in for you. It's not a bad number, but I'm going to say f of, before I do that, I want to show you that pi squared divided by 4. If I do that, I get this crazy looking thing, underscore dot n, and I get about 2.467. Now, I hope you realize that that's the number that we're kind of looking at up there. I mean, not the same number, but close to it. And what I'm going to claim over here, f evaluated at that number, pi squared over 4. Let's do that. Is exactly the number 2. All right? Now, granted, let me repeat this for you. We were trying to figure out the number that makes this exactly equal to 2 for that integration over there. What do? We kind of played around using Sage to figure it out. We were getting approximate answers. And then at some point, I want to point out we did a lot of arithmetic over here. Sage is doing arithmetic. I'm not doing it, by the way. We were able, my claim over here is if you kind of do this, you'll be able to do that integration, by the way, and get that. And be able to solve this for, the integration from 0 to t to get the t to be pi squared over 4. It looks tough, though, but honest with you, it's really not so bad. If you start trying, you can do it. I really do mean that. If you start trying, you can do that. They also go on over here about the integration of that problem, and they give you the answer over here, all right? So the exact value doing that, I also go through that, and also talk about using some Sage code to do that, all right? What's the deal, though? If your goal is to retype code and not understand what you're doing, that's going to get you nowhere. So I'm going to say that the first place you should be working with is looking at the problem, understanding the problem, paper and pencil, trying to figure out, resorting to Sage, knowing you can't figure something out. Then again, if Sage can do it, you might say to yourself, well, I could probably do it too. And you start to give yourself some confidence and you start to move forward. But reading, paper and pencil, it's not about just retyping code, all right? Thank you so much for paying attention, though.